the Hastelloy and Inconel piping at the acid delivery system out of Train 1 to chlorinated polyvinyl chloride, or CPVC. It was my idea exclusively to convert over to CPVC. We had so many leaks all over the system, from the acid quill injection point all the way back to the tank, that something needed to be done. And my boss asked me, I need a solution, Kevin. I can't get involved in the nitty-gritty details of whatever you're computating or whatever it is you're doing. Just, we need a solution. So I came up with the CPVC, and it didn't go over well with maintenance or operations.
Why didn't they like it?
It wasn't metal. They felt it wasn't strong enough. It would make another leak. They didn't like the fact that all the fittings would be glued together. It gets cold in Wyoming. They figured that something would crack.
So you weren't using PVC before you were
No,
using
they were
metal.
using
Were you copper, or what kind of metal were you
Hastelloy and Inconel. It's an exotic metal. It's very expensive. You can't use stainless steel. It's going to corrode. And then these higher end, what they call exotic metals, are used when you're handling corrosives or other kinds of gases or fluids, that the process would dictate the use of an exotic metal.
Okay, and so here you are saying, I got this plastic pipe.
Right, exactly.
Plastic
exactly.
pipe that I think is going to work better than
Right.
this expensive exotic metal.
Right.
What did you base that recommendation on?
Actually, I went to the Cole Palmer website. Cole Palmer has a built-in menu where you can select based on 3 stuffs. And the stuffs are your fluid that you're handling, your material that you're going to use, and then a rating, a good, fair, poor, excellent rating. And so you could say, okay, you could select 2 of the 3, and it will give you some options. So you could say, I want an excellent rating, and I'm going to use sulfuric acid of whatever concentration. Then it will give you a whole list of materials that are compatible for that. So if you go to that site and do all this kind of homework, you can come up with a menu. And I felt CPVC was good, and I took all the documentation to the engineering supervisor out of Lost Cabin. I said, Mike, I think this is what we should do. He said, great, good idea, Kevin, and use Schedule 80. I know you were thinking Schedule 40, but let's go with Schedule 80. Not a problem. So Schedule 80 is a heavier gauge pipe than Schedule 40. It's thicker. It's twice as thick. So not a problem. So I went in SAP and ordered got a vendor quote and made an order to get the CPVC, and went to maintenance at the same time and said, this is what we're going to do. This is what we would like to do. And they hemmed and hawed. They didn't really like it, and I made my case. I said, look, this is our options and material selections. I think this is going to work. The fittings will have to be glued. We could heat trace the piping so that we could avoid these big thermal gradients and the cracking. But I think in the long run, heat traced CPVC with insulation is going to be the way to go for this. And so they actually said, I'm going to trust you, Kevin. But if it doesn't work, we are going to be in your office, and we are going to drop the hammer. I'm telling you right now, straight up what it is. This is the superintendent telling me this. Mm-hmm. And he says, because the guys, I said, I talked to your guys. Before I came to your office, I went and talked to your guys because I value their input. They didn't like it, so we're all on the same page now. I'm kind of dangling out here on this. But I think this is going to work, because right now, we got to make a change. There's leaks.
Did you arrange for some kind of a test?
Yes, we hydro-tested with water to 100 psi's after the installation, after the gluing, and after it cured.
With water?
Yes.
It's not very corrosive, is it?
We wanted to test for leaks. But corrosion,
because of the glue?
The corrosive test, it corrodes over time, so there's not a quick corrosion test to do. But we do want to leak test it, so we charged it with water and ran it to 100 psi's, and it was good. And I want to say, after 2 months of solid operation, no leaks, everything worked out great. And they said, no, you were right. And then we had leaks in other areas that were still using Hastelloy and Inconel, and they were like, Kevin, we need to get it all over to CPVC. You know that. We need a quill of CPVC. Can you find one? My boss said, Kevin, this is all your idea. We need to get rid of these leaks over here. Can you get a quill, get rid of the Hastelloy, and get a CPVC? So I went to a vendor and got a homemade specialized CPVC quill. So they gained more confidence in me. But initially, there was some
Okay.
intellectual resistance.
Before you had implemented it, were there any examples that the vendor had given you of other places they implemented before you did, or no?
Yes, I went and looked up to see where CPVC was used before, and they've
Right.
used it in acid applications. So in addition to the coal farmers, I want to say, I showed my boss Mike saying, look, this was also used somewhere else successfully. So it's
Okay.
not just shown on the coal farmer
Right.
website as a recommended material, but this is an application where it was used successfully.
Did you talk to the customer of that vendor about that, or no?
No, it was another company. I
Okay,
didn't want to call ExxonMobil.
gotcha.
It's
Got it.
Okay. That was a good problem that you solved, and tell us some more. Give us another problem that you've solved. We want somebody who's consistently coming up with good solutions to things.
okay. This is more of a group problem, but replacement of the acid quill with the CPVC constructed quill. I ordered a quill from the vendor.
What's the quill?
It's like a stinger, and it's the injection point where the acid goes into the pipe and mixes with water before it goes into gases. So what happened was I had a lot of responsibilities to do, and this is really going to come down as no excuse, but it had to go through a valve, a ball valve, and so we needed a long extension cantilevered, so I ordered a thick cross section, a 1/2 inch ID and a 1 inch OD, so it's pretty beefy because it has to cantilever out, and so I wanted a rigid section. So I ordered this from the vendor, and I ordered 4, just in case one messed up, and we were planning an outage in train 1. So I had other responsibilities within associated with the shutdown. I was relatively new employee, been with the company about a year, and it was in October of 2014. So what ended up happening is I didn't go into SAP and check the valve. We didn't have an extra one in the warehouse. What happened is the valve has a rectangular section through the middle of it. And so we got this circular section, and we're getting ready to install it, and they called me on the radio and said, Kevin Sack, come down to the shop, we want you to take a look at something, and it won't fit. And I was so busy with my responsibilities at the plant because things are getting busier and busier, and I got to take on the responsibility of the shutdown, because my boss is on vacation. So this is really good, but it was an oversight. I should have went to SAP, pulled down the drawing of the valve, and saw it was, and then I could have went with the vendor and had something else done. But now the inside of that valve has a special coating to handle acid. So we don't want to drill out or aug out or monkey with the inside of that valve because it's specially coated. So now what are we going to do? So my boss is on vacation. He's calling in to check to see how things are going, and I told him we had a problem. Things aren't fitting together with the quill. He said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'll come out. You're on vacation. I'm going to solve a problem. Work with maintenance. We're going to get it done." And so I have a very strong relationship with the maintenance superintendent. He says, "Kevin, don't worry about it. We're going to help you out on this. It's not a big deal. You do a great job here." This is an oversight on my part. I really should have went. We didn't have an extra valve. I just assumed it was circular. It's not. We got a problem right now. We all got together and decided we could, since the section's so thick, we could machine down 2 horizontal flats and get it to fit through the and we did. And the guys helped me. We got it done. It worked fine. I did some calculations. It's stiff enough to handle with the removal of the material, just in that one section. And when my boss came in the following week, he said, "How did it go?" I said, "It's all taken care of." He says, "Why don't you have those other 3 quills also machined the same way? Close it on the same work order." I said, "They're already on it." So, long story short, I had a problem I had to resolve. It was an oversight on my own part because I was so busy that I didn't have another set of eyes look at one specific thing, and so it was a learning experience for me. But the guys helped me out. We got it done.
All right, thank you. Chad?
So, as far as taking a look at, multidiscipline team environment. So, what is a time where there was the most amount of kind of teams from other departments that you had to deal with, and what was that project, and what were the challenges in dealing with some teams that really have a large number of stakeholders?
Okay, one was they were building a man camp expansion out at Lost Cabin. So
Okay.
a man camp is basically another housing so that more employees can work on rotation at the remote site. And so
Mhm.
before this happened right when I first started at Lost Cabin in the fall of 2013. And I'm a process engineer at the plant, so I don't really manage projects.
Mm.
And so a facilities project, they gave it to me. They gave me the man camp project, which was like a $1.3 million project, which I didn't mind. They needed somebody with experience in facilities design, HVAC, plumbing, electrical,
Okay.
and I had all that. So they gave it to me. They had me loaded up with a lot, and they said, "Don't worry about this. We're going to hire a project engineer
Okay.
because you're too overloaded. We need you to focus in on the process engineering responsibility. We know you're overloaded."
Yeah.
So I worked on that, and it was a little challenging because you had people from Houston doing the design, input from those stakeholders, you have input from potential people that are gonna go on rotation saying they want pool tables and all this other stuff that we're not gonna use. And so people are giving all their little inputs on what they wanna see in the new expansion building. And some of it's useful, some of it's unnecessary, obviously. And so it can be difficult trying to weed through what's needed and what's desired and what's going to be able to meet the budget. And so that was a little challenging until some of those items were thrown out, and then the project engineer came on board and she was able to take over the project. But at that point in time, it could be a little challenging with so many stakeholders giving input on a project.
So how are you able to streamline the input that you're getting from all those?
Make a spreadsheet list of needs versus what we want. And I think just trying to establish that from the get-go at least gets people thinking about how money's being spent and what's going to be needed versus what we'd like to have.
So how did you deal with conflicts between people wanting things that were diametrically opposed or budgetarily opposed?
I think that part I was successfully able to point out needs versus wants. The big problems were some of the younger engineers coming out of college that didn't understand design principles in HVAC.
Okay.
And they want to we want to put wall units in these buildings, like similar to a hotel.
Yeah.
And they want to put in an air distribution system, which is completely would not be recommended for something like that. And trying to convey these messages to somebody who has no design experience right out of college and doesn't know much about an HVAC system, that is very much challenging.
So how were you able to accomplish that?
Trying to just keep explaining principles in HVAC and electrical to a new engineer it's gonna, you have to work with them and be patient.
Okay. Now, you had given me an example before about somebody that you were mentoring where there was a challenge
Sure.
in that relationship. So what about an example of a challenge that you had with a boss, a supervisor, that there was some conflict there, and how did you go about dealing with that, and what was the result?
I can't think of one I had with a supervisor. I really haven't had any conflicts with supervisors.
What about a disagreement of opinion on how you guys drove to agreement on?
Oh, okay.
Opinion?
There was one. The installation of the acid tank was what was purchased was a linear low density polyethylene, and my boss came to me at the inception of everything going on with the acid system and said, "Look over these vendor specs. Tell me what you think, Kevin." Sure. So I went and looked at it, and for sulfuric, which has got a rho or a density of 2.0 times water, so it's really, you want a high density linear polyethylene or cross